Have you ever wondered how to handle high-profile cases? If you said yes, then this video is for you. Welcome to the PI Guide, tips, tricks, and advice for professional private investigators just like you. My name is John Morris. I am a licensed professional private investigator in Colorado. A good PI Guide viewer, Mr. Bob Stringer, sent me a question the other day. Bob said, I was wondering how to best communicate with a new client that has asked me to work a high-profile case and how I can set a custom rate due to the extreme complexities. Now, as Bob also stated, I totally agree. Your regular hourly rate for normal run-of-the-mill type cases such as infidelity, workers' comp, those kinds of cases that just involve John Q. Public should not apply in high-profile cases. Bob also stated, these high-profile cases cost me more to work as I have to use vehicles that are not registered to me because the party being investigated is wealthy and has bodyguards, whereas these protection companies also have PI licenses and can run vehicle license plates. Therefore, identifying me would be a total disaster. Well said, Bob. Well said. Yes, indeed. I learned long ago not to follow high-profile targets in my regular surveillance vehicles or any vehicle directly tied to me. Rental cars are a must, and even then, a good PI may be able to figure out who was renting that car on a specific day. Now, what other complicated case scenarios can you think of? Go down and tell me in the comments below. The first big thing to remember, folks, never, ever post your rates on your website. Along with that, never, ever hand out rate sheets or rate cards. And wait a second, here is a huge secret for you. Never, ever even quote jobs like they're all identical. What I mean, if John Q. Public calls you today and inquires about conducting surveillance on his wife to see if she is cheating, and you quote a retainer of, let's say, $3,000 for 3 days of surveillance, don't assume in your mind that all infidelity cases get the same quote. For instance, if I am able to provide 3 days of surveillance over a period of time, let's say a week or two, then the surveillance in itself is a lot easier. But if the client or the case itself require 3 days in a row of surveillance, all starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then there are more complexities to the case, to be sure. Just having to pull into a neighborhood in the middle of the afternoon in the blistering heat for all to see is tough enough. But to have to do these 3 days in a row, well, the chances of a burn, no pun intended, is much higher, as there is a good chance someone will notice you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon versus 5 a.m. Other things that may complicate the case are long surveillance periods. For instance, if a client wants 5, 7, or 10 days or even longer surveillance periods, the complications, the intricacies, and the ramifications are multiplied exponentially. But wait, what about other things that can complicate a case? Obviously, as Bob mentioned, high-profile subjects will make things much more difficult. But how about nighttime surveillance? I find that following someone at night is more difficult than following someone in the daytime. And if the subject is expected to go to public places like bars, nightclubs, sporting events, concerts, school events, man, those can really throw a wrench into the mix. And then there is the challenge if the subject may possibly be aware of surveillance. These things, folks, are exactly why I never treat any two cases as the same. And that starts with the initial discussions with the client. I get all of the info I can, ask all of the questions I can think of, and I customize not only a case plan for them, but a quote for them. Now, naturally, there are many that are similar. I might get 5 calls on infidelity cases, and they all end up with the same quote, save maybe some differences for mileage and travel time. But I go through the same exercise each and every time to make sure I get it right. So how do you charge for those high-profile and more complicated cases, and how do you communicate that to the client? Well, first off, anyone who knows me can attest to this. When anyone asks me how much I charge, my first answer is as much as I can. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I am somewhat serious as well, folks. I am not out to cheat anyone out of money, but getting the most out of your services just makes plain good sense. If I go to the hardware store and I look at some widgets I might need, they will have widget 1, widget 2, and widget 3. They are all priced differently. Widget 1 may be the bargain basement one. Widget 2 is the one that's run-of-the-mill. And then there's widget 3, made out of all metal and has a lifetime guarantee. The same goes for your services. Your clients with the high-profile cases, the long surveillance periods, those difficult scenarios are not looking for the bargain basement widget. They want a professional out there that will get the job done correctly with the least number of complications in their life. If you price it like that simple surveillance, like a workers' comp type of case, and I know those can get very complicated too, but they tend to be more run-of-the-mill, standard, and every insurance company knows that burns and loss subjects are just part of the game. If you price it like those cases, then you will probably treat it more like those simpler cases, and then you run more risk of getting burned, losing your target, things just plain going wrong, and the client not understanding. If I have a workers' comp case and we get burned, the client understands. It doesn't mean they like it, but they know it happens. They also know they are paying at a widget number one level. They are paying for bargain basement work in mass with bulk pricing. But that high profile case, that client for sure does not want to burn. So as you're discussing the case with the client, you need to plan how to make sure you can do the best possible job. What widget 3s are at your disposal? Now, if all you got is widget 1s or widget 2s, you may be in over your head. If needed, go outside of the norm and look for the skills of higher qualified investigators and sub it out or refer it out. What I am saying is, if all you do is workers' comp, slip and fall, that type of surveillance, and a major sports figure's wife reaches out and wants you to follow him around and see if he is cheating, folks, you may well be in over your head in that case. I know for certain I would be over my head today trying to work it, but here's the big secret, folks. I know people who can do those kinds of jobs. All I have to do is price it right so I can make some money too. So how do you price it, you ask? Great question. My general rule is like this. I have my basic hourly fee we charge for certain types of investigation. I do not have one hourly fee. I have a fee for surveillance, a fee for criminal defense, and a fee for every type of investigation we do. I then have markups. That's right, markups, not markdowns from there. So if it's an infidelity case, it has a higher hourly rate than workers' comp cases for an insurance company. That is because they have more complications usually, and the clients need more hand-holding and have higher expectations. Then, if it is a nighttime surveillance, it will have a markup of maybe 25%. Why? Well, because I have to put out an investigator that has nighttime experience as well, a good knowledge of the town or area they're doing surveillance in, and some more specialized equipment like covert cameras that do low light and nighttime video. But wait, we're not done yet. If it is consecutive days, it will get bumped up again most likely. Why? Well, because the risk of getting burned is higher and I may need to utilize more than one investigator to keep things fresh. And yes, if there are some other complications like we spoke about, going into public places, events, things like that, yep, the price goes up again due to the level of expertise required for more complicated cases. Then I also have a rate for corporate and high profile cases. Those for me, folks, is usually close to double my regular rate. I have to utilize the cream of the crop investigators for those cases, and once they are utilized, they are out of the picture, so I can't use them on other cases. And yes, that is per investigator. So if I have to use 2 surveillance investigators, that is at the higher fee times 2. No, I don't discount for second investigators for multiple days or for bulk work. All of those things do not make the job any easier. In fact, it can complicate it even more. But how do you communicate all of this to the client? Well, quite simply, you just communicate it with a retainer quote and what they will get for that retainer. I do not recommend telling the client, well, you know, our regular hourly rate is $95 an hour, but this is a pretty complicated case, so your fee will be $190 an hour. That will not fly very well. In fact, I never discuss hourly rates with clients. They never see the hourly rate until they get the contract. I just tell them what the retainer is and what they get for that retainer. Mr. Customer, we can definitely help you with this unfortunate situation. As we discussed, we can put 2 investigators out on surveillance starting as soon as tomorrow. We will do 5 days of surveillance from noon until midnight each day, and the retainer will be $38,000. All we need to do is get started on the contract, then close that deal. And remember folks, stay safe out there.